With Darth Vader returning in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, I thought that it would be interesting to take a look at some of the expanded lore that we have of Vader in Legends continuity, including tying him into one of my favorite mediums of Star Wars, that being the Force Unleashed video game franchise, and Darth Vader's connection with an apprentice, as this is sort of a unique relationship that we see Darth Vader in. We also really get a look at Darth Vader's mental state and how he treats Starkiller. So without further ado, let's get into this and this interesting piece of lore we have from Darth Vader from Legends continuity. Throughout his tenure as a fearsome Sith Lord, Darth Vader led the manhunt and slaughter of countless Jedi Knights and surviving sympathists to the Republic. Vader led marches at the behest of Palpatine and was widely viewed as perhaps the single most fearsome executioner that the Empire had to offer. While Vader was trained extensively as a Jedi Knight during the Clone Wars and had seen countless real-world combat scenarios across the galaxy, his training regimen continued to grow and evolve during his time under the Empire, adapting to his new life as a Sith Lord and lapdog to the Emperor, not to mention his new suit due to his injuries. During his earlier days as Darth Vader, one of his most prized training droids actually helped him prepare for his duel against Jedi Knights, and one former master in particular, in some highly immersive ways. So stick with us today, weary acolytes of the galaxy, and let's explore the droid known as Proxy, and the relationship that the droid shared with his creator in Darth Vader. As in the series of The Force Unleashed, Proxy is most often seen as a training droid for Starkiller himself, but Vader himself actually has a deep relationship and even hatred for the droid, as we explore the specific purpose that Vader programmed into the droid that exceeded basic combat training. Proxy was a prototype holodroid created and designed to assist in the training of a new apprentice via the use of immersive combat scenarios, and was most notably used by Darth Vader in the training of Starkiller and Galen Marek. This Proxy droid was capable of creating incredibly realistic holographic scenarios for training purposes and were used widely throughout the Empire, not just for Vader himself in his personal use. While Vader would use it for his own combat training, he also used it to condition Starkiller throughout the course of his training. The Proxy droid was able to change its appearances at will to a wide variety of different creatures, as well as mimic physical abilities to near perfection so long as enough recorded information was present, which made them prime candidates to lead various training programs all across the Empire. Due to this, Proxy was used not just in physical conditioning, but the Empire was able to repurpose these abilities to be used for mental and emotional conditioning as well. One notable use of these holographic training techniques was after the death of Galen Marek. During the early days of the Rebel Alliance, the Empire sought to clone Marek on Kamino in order to turn the clone against the rebels, and these holograms were used to test his mental and emotional willingness to kill various members of the Rebel Alliance. While the Starkiller clone was able to bring himself to kill rebel guards and patrols, the limits of his emotional capacity were still hindered by the imprint that the original Galen Marek had left on his clone. Upon failing to kill a holographic clone of Juno Eclipse as a result of the lingering memories, Vader attempted to kill the Starkiller clone. However, the clone managed to escape, and thus the events of The Force Unleashed 2 kick off. But while these Proxy droids were used vastly across the Empire, how did Vader personally utilize Proxy? His preeminent use was in allowing Vader to spar against the most commonly practiced lightsaber forms, seeing as he was capable of mimicking Jedi Knights and their prowess with the 7 base forms of lightsaber combat, allowing Vader to train with the forms that he would most commonly come against Order 66 survivors with uncanny precision, allowing Vader to condition himself for combat scenarios. While this helped him prepare in combat with Jedi, however, he would most often program the droid with one specific Jedi Master in mind, that being famed Jedi General Obi-Wan Kenobi. As Vader did with many of his other droids as Anakin Skywalker, he also tinkered with Proxy, attempting to make it as accurate as possible to the fighting styles of Obi-Wan, his hatred for Obi-Wan seeping over through his work. This allowed Vader to spend every waking moment of his training learning to beat his former master after his defeat on Mustafar, an event that Vader was obsessed with. The defeat that Vader suffered at the hands of his old master served to define most of his life from this point on, as Kenobi not only crippled him and isolated him to his life support suit, but he also escaped into hiding without Vader ever being able to enact true payback on the Jedi Master. The next time they would face off though, which Vader viewed as an eventuality, Vader would be ready. The first time around as Anakin, Vader underestimated the power and skill of Obi-Wan Kenobi, not to mention his sound mental state. This would not be the case in their next engagement, and Vader would make sure of it. His eventual rematch with Obi-Wan was one of Vader's most awaited encounters, finally being able to exert his dominance over the man who bested him all those years ago and left him for dead to burn on Mustafar, and so this led to him programming Proxy with the same combat techniques and preferences as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He programmed Sarisu to be the premier saber style that Proxy would utilize in their training sessions, as Vader spent years learning how to finally breach Obi-Wan's once impenetrable defensive capabilities. Obi-Wan was widely known as the master of defense, and was regarded as virtually untouchable in saber combat against many of the most talented duelists that the galaxy had to offer. And this is what made him the primary candidate to assassinate General Grievous, as Grievous was widely known to overwhelm his opponents with the barrage of strikes and blows. Obi-Wan's mastery of defense, however, was what finally allowed the Jedi Order to subdue and kill Grievous once and for all after their encounter on Utapau in the waning days of the Clone War. The most notable exception worth mentioning is Count Dooku, however, who was widely regarded as one of the very best swordsmen that the Jedi Order had ever produced. And it's important to note that in Revenge of the Sith, he only bests Obi-Wan by utilizing the Force to his advantage, not just his raw blade capabilities. He also utilized the Obi-Wan program when training Starkiller, pitting him against one of the best defensive duelists of the Jedi Order. And Starkiller is on record as stating that the Kenobi module is one of the only combat scenarios that legitimately caught him off guard, though Starkiller's training with Proxy went far beyond simple combat conditioning. Starkiller demanded that Proxy subject him to a series of mental and emotional horrors in order to hone his skill with the dark side, with one instance being that Proxy chained Starkiller in a dark room without food or water until he was able to telekinetically assemble a lightsaber made from scraps around him. We know that Darth Vader is set to encounter Obi-Wan again at some point between the events of Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope in Star Wars canon, and if they wanted to take events from Star Wars Legends and implement into the new show, there may be training on display on behalf of Vader, that Vader may showcase a particular prowess for overcoming Obi-Wan's once highly revered defenses, and it may put Obi-Wan into one of the most strenuous combat scenarios of his life thus far. But anyway friends, what do you think of Proxy? Do you think he'll show up in the Kenobi series? And if so, what kinds of interactions would you like to see him and Vader have when the series arrives this May? How do you feel about Darth Vader training specifically with Proxy for years leading up into his eventual rematch with Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope? And what are your thoughts on them possibly implementing this into the Obi-Wan Kenobi series? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching. May the Force be with you, and I hope you have a great day.